All right, grade 7, we have learned about the Pythagorean theorem. Essentially, the Pythagorean theorem has taught us about right triangles. And so we have a right angle in the corner, and our side opposite that right triangle will be your hypotenuse. We've also learned that those sides can be labeled A, B, C. Your hypotenuse always being C, the other sides doesn't matter so much, but that A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So this is good information to know, especially when we want to make sure that we have something square. For example, if we're building a deck, or if we're measuring a distance across something and trying to figure out with the lengths of something what our hypotenuse is. So using that information, we can answer some practical questions. So I am going in our math book to page 787, and I'm going to go through the practice set with you, and we're going to answer these questions for you in a way that's easy for you to understand. So we have a 12-foot ladder that is leaning up against a building. So we know that it's going to be leaning up against a building. And we have a 12-foot ladder. Okay? And the base of the ladder was 5 feet from the building. I think maybe I should redraw this a little clearer because it looks like my proportions will be out. So we have a 12-foot ladder here. And that's 12. And it's leaning this far roughly from the building. That's 5 feet. And then we have our line going down where the building is. Hopefully I drew it pretty close to a square. And we have our right angle here because the building goes straight up. So if you look at this, we have to label this C. This can be A, this can be B, it doesn't matter. We know that A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So figuring that out, we have 5 squared. No, that's not 5 squared there. A is, we don't know. A squared plus 5 squared equals 12 squared. So really we have A being A squared being 144, subtract 25. We do our math here, 144 subtract 25, and we have 14 subtract 5, which is 9, and then we have 3 subtract 2, which is 1, so we have 119. So A squared equals 119. And we have to do the square root of 119, and figuring that out will tell us 119 square root is 10.9 inches. Okay? And let's go back. So we have A squared equals 10 feet, 0.9 of an inch, but we can't do it that way. 9/10 of a foot is actually an equivalent fraction to over 12. 10 times 9 times 12 is 108. 10 times 10 gets you the closest, which is be about 100. So we're looking at 10 foot, 10 inches. And that gives you your solution. Figure A, B, C, D, and I'm going to copy that down. So we have A, B, C, D, gets us a field, and it's 300 by 400, so 300 by 400, and we have A, B, C, D, and we want to know this. It says the path is how much shorter from A to C, so that's voice recognition for you, than it is if you go from A to B to C. So A to B is 300, so 300 and 400 That gives us 700. So now it's asking us, what would we get if we go straight across? Well, we know that we have a triangle here. This is the hypotenuse. So we go 300 squared plus 400 squared equals your c squared. Right? And actually, if you want to figure it out simpler, you do 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared, and we'll add our zeros later. So you get 9 plus 16 equals 25. And then we have to do the square root of 25, which is 5. How many zeros did we have? We had 2. So we know that this distance was 500. So that's how much shorter it is. So we go 700, subtract our 200 is 500 feet shorter. You can see the math helps us out there. Contractor checks the forms for the concrete slab. He marks the forms at 8 and 6 feet. Then he measures the distance and finds out that it is 10 foot 2 inches. So he has one that's 8. This one's 8. And this one's slightly shorter at 6. And he wants to know if he has a right angle here. So really what we have to do is look at this and see if what this is supposed to be. So again, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A squared is 36, b squared is 64, and that would get us to 100. Now the square root of 100 is c, which c would equal 10. So you can see that he needs it to be an even 10 feet. So is the corner a right angle? No. The Pythagorean Theorem says that the length should be 10 feet. I'm going to go back to number